Hey guys, Paul McLean here, and welcome to the Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast. And excited to have you guys on today. And I'll tell you what, every single Monday morning, I wake up excited about listening to the guests that we have on each week. And I hope they provide great value to you. In fact, I'm sure they do, because I've done this 14 years and I'm sitting here taking notes, leaning in, and excited about the value that we can bring in. And my goal and desire every single week is to really serve you. I know that you're waking up, you're getting this week going. You're self-employed for most of you that are watching this, and your goal is to go out there and really attack this week to, at the end of the week, be able to say, look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I did a great job. You know, I've grown. There's progress. Maybe it wasn't everything accomplished, which that's not usually how it works out, but you see yourself going down that process, and the expectation is I'm going to kill this thing. I'm going to blow up. I'm going to have success. And so this week, guys, I've got a very special guest, and I've got a great topic to cover. We're going to get into mental toughness, which I do believe is probably one of the top attributes you can have being self-employed in the insurance industry, working with Family First Life, is that mental toughness, being able to go out there and respond in the right ways, and to bounce back, and to not take offense, and to think big, and to negate broke mindset or victim mindset. And we're really going to tackle that. And I could not think of anybody better than my good buddy, Joseph Miller, to join us today. Joe, how you doing, my man?
Good, dude. Happy to be with you. Thanks for asking me.
I'll tell you this much, man. And I mean this. Every time we have a chance to talk, some people I get off the phone, I'm like, God, man, I feel like I could take a bath. You know what I mean? It's just certain people. And then, but for you, man, I get off the phone and I'm just like, man, I want to run through a wall. I want to figure out how I could look and interrogate my reality. I want to be able to audit, what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and take more ownership. I want to be more accountable. I just want to get better, dude. And I just appreciate you and value you for being the kind of person that when I talk to and I get off the phone, I want to be better. And because that basically, bleeds into every role in my life. And I appreciate you being that person for me, man. And I'm excited to have people listen to you today as we get into this thing, because you've had some great success, man. Now doing, is it 2 million a month in paid business or close to it?
We're sitting right there, man. We got to break over that 2 million, but we're right at 1.8.
So 1.8.
1.8.
So depending on when you're watching this, Joe, you could be at 18 million by then, right? The way this thing's growing, but you're watching this, in the month of October of 2021, but there's no doubt that this thing's going to continue to grow. You've seen some phenomenal explosive growth. Really the past 12 months, this thing's taken off. But do we go way back? We go way back. When did we first, how long have we known each other, Joe?
When did I get, it has to be 2014.
Okay. So
2014,
7 years that we go
yep.
back.
This month, actually, October is my 7-year anniversary with Family First Life and having my license.
Awesome, man. Well, happy anniversary. And I remember, working with you 7 years ago, and just the conversations we had and what we were talking about, about back then. And it's kind of cool to see how the conversations change as things grow, develop, and get bigger. Joe, if you can kind of start with, man, talk about, your start into the insurance business. Cause like I said in the intro, I really do believe you've really got mental toughness down. I just don't think many things rattle you or shake you. And I think that's detrimental. I think it could be catastrophic if you don't have that in this business, because things will happen. Personal life will happen. Business things will happen. They're inevitable. But I believe it's a response to those things that really dictate the speed to which somebody gets to where they want to go, or the speed to which they get out of the business. And so talk about your start in the business. Was it all roses and lilies and, that kind of stuff? Or, did you deal with some kind of pushback and struggle in the beginning? And how'd you handle it?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So I got started begrudgingly. I got started in the insurance business. A guy told me that I should do insurance, and I told him, heck no. And I wasn't interested. And he basically was persistent, and he said that I should, I'll buy you a beer. And I said, okay, now you're talking my language. Make it 2 and I'll come listen to what you have to say. And he laid it out for me. And I had some very specific things in the beginning of what I wasn't going to do. And so maybe that if someone's on here and they're like, I don't want to hire, I don't want to do these. I had all those things. I didn't want to talk to my friends, family, and neighbors. I did not want to recruit anybody. And if I couldn't make money just selling, I wasn't interested. And so that's, he answered those questions. So I got started. And the only time I really had, I was going to school full time. Not that that's a big deal. It's not. But we had a 6-month-old, and my wife was working full time, making a very good income. And the only reason I even wanted to do this was because I needed to get out of the house, because I was wrestling with a 6-month-old on a daily basis in and around my wife's schedule. So me getting involved, I didn't know what I was doing. I was up in the Bay, and Trey Honeycutt and you and Andrew were down in Southern California. And so I was up there by myself, running appointments. And so if you're on here, Alameda County is from Berkeley to Fremont, Oakland, Hayward, that area is where I ran business, and it was mortgage protection leads. And so it was really funny. It was really funny. My first 10 appointments, I wasn't really good on the phone, but people realized when I was talking to them that they weren't just going to tell me no, I was coming over. Like, I have your address, I'm coming over. So I got into the houses really easily, but I was finding myself, and maybe you can relate to this, I was getting a lot of, we want to think about it. We want to think about it. It's not, you're great, everything sounds great, but we don't make decisions on the first day. We want to think about it. And logically, that made sense to me, because I don't have a sales background. My background is out of the military, right? The military, and I was a cop in the military. So that's not sales. Military cop and sales, military cop, right? Complete opposite ends of the spectrum. So I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. They'll call me. And so I would call you guys up and be like, yeah, I had some really good appointments and they're going to call me back. And as we know that, did I ever get those calls back? And the answer was no, never. But the one thing I did do was I was talking to Trey, I was talking to you, I was talking to Andrew about those appointments. And you guys, it was funny. You didn't try to coach me up on those appointments specifically. You said, hey, we have an event coming up. Hey, we have an event coming up, right? And I lived in the Bay. You guys lived in Southern California. And guess where this event was? This event was in Atlanta. It was family. I didn't get started when Family First Life began, but I got started at the end of the first wave, is how I like to say. So the end of the first year. So we were going to our conference. There was maybe 200 people there. And Andrew and Trey said, you have to be there. I said, I don't want to go to Atlanta. I don't know anybody in Atlanta. Why would I want to go to Atlanta? It was kind of a hard no, but I'm laying these down for people to realize that there's nuggets in promotion. You don't have to be everything to everybody. You guys didn't try to coach me up. You just said, hey, you have to be here, because that was the next thing that was coming up. It was coming up relatively quickly. And I was actually pretty annoyed, because I was like, I don't like to do things last minute. I like to get my tickets well in advance and all those things. But I went to Atlanta, and the things that I learned there allowed me, when I got back, to call all of those appointments that I had sat on. So there was 10 appointments. I sat on all 10, and none of them were no's. They were all, we're going to think about it. But you and I both know that that's a nice way of saying no, or that's a nice way of postponing the answer. And I got back into 6 of those 10 because it's easier to call people you already talked to than call new leads, right? And I was able to close them all just from that one event, because of the stuff that I learned in Atlanta. I remember vividly that I got back into those appointments, 6 of them, and sold them all. And it was very simple based on what I learned at the event.
Yeah, I love that, dude. And I think that's such a big deal what you said. I want to highlight it. Like, it's not, you don't have to be the magic. In fact, nobody ever is. And so I think it's easier for a new person to start hiring and building a business and really get the person they hire going at a faster pace, because they kind of understand. They're like, man, what do I have to say or tell that person? And so they default back to just promoting the conference calls or podcast, the meetings, the events, and what have you, where when you get your business kind of growing, or you start writing 20,000 a month, it's very easy to slide into this. Well, man, I know some stuff now. So, let me tell you how to overcome this think about it objection. And then you spend an hour with this agent trying to get them the skills to overcome, to think about it. And the reality is this: there's probably somebody on a podcast or at a meeting that are better at overcoming that objection than you are. And it wasn't just the fact that, Joe, you were delivered the right skill sets in that meeting, but it was in the environment in which you were delivered those skill sets. It was such an environment of big belief, committed people, and people do what people do. And so when you're around a bunch of people that have conviction, that are committed, that can communicate, that hold themselves like that, you just kind of, you just feed off that, and, it's kind of interesting how what you said, Joe, was I think such a big nugget, man. Like when you said it was easy for me to relate to them when they said they wanted to think about it, because I kind of thought that makes sense. It's probably what I would want to say too. Like, why would they not do that? And I think that's the crossroads where you go from relating to somebody and like understanding how they feel, which is essential to being able to kind of get them on your wavelength or thought pattern, to really kind of transfer your thoughts and beliefs to them, where they kind of take that on, own it, and move from it. But that crossroads is where you you relate so much so that you're like sold out to what they believe and their perspective. And when you do that, oh, you're headed to imminent failure. But when you can relate, but at the same time, your conviction is so much greater than what you're relating to, meaning that that they could die tomorrow and what that's going to look like and the struggle there. Or you can relate to just buying a house and not knowing your budget, because you got to know what the electricity bills and the gas bills and all that kind of stuff. And so I can relate to that. But when you relate to it so much so where you're sold out on it, like, well, yeah, let's just call me back in 2 weeks when all those bills get figured out, then you're never going to close. And you will have a client that dies in the interim between them calling you back. In fact, most of them don't call you back. But if you can relate, but still be so convicted in the fact that this is the most important thing they can get, then you can go out there and you can be very effective in helping people. And that's really what you're talking about. And I love that. So you went out and had, 10 no sales in a row. Do you think the meeting kind of helped you find, like, let me ask you this, Joe, let me put it this way. Before you went to the meeting, were you tempted to kind of look at those 10 no sales and just think that maybe it's not going to work, maybe you're not that good? And then when you went to the meeting, did it help you find the good in the 10 experiences that you had that you could take from it and grow from it, which is what you did? Do you think that helped you identify and clarify the good and how to approach that and how to see it?
The event definitely gave me better perspective. But the beginning part of your question was did I think something was wrong with me, or I had nothing to base it on. So I didn't know any better. I didn't know that that's not how it was supposed to go. I didn't know that it's a, one sit close or whatever. I was happy to talk to another adult. So maybe I was a little naive, that I was just over there and this is the sales process that you go through. So I didn't have any expectations at all. And I wasn't bummed out about it. But going to that event, some people, I have a lot, we have a lot of agents, train a lot of people, and they'll want to, they feel like their world is coming crashing down, that they just had 10 no sales, right? I didn't necessarily have that. I just didn't have the right perspective. The perspective was that when I sit with a family that they ask for, I need to leave them in a better spot than I found them. And something that resonates with me, or I look back and laugh about, is something that you used to train on in the country club, was it Spring Valley Country Club? I remember specifically because I actually traveled down from the Bay to go to one of those events. And you said, I'm the doctor, they're the patient. I'm the doctor, they're the patient. And in the moment, I literally thought you had lost your mind. I was like, what is this dude talking about? I had no idea why you would say that. It did not make any sense to me at the time. But you said that, maybe that was just a phase at that time. I don't know if you still say that, but I'm the doctor, they're the patient. And now I utilize that a lot because it paints a very good picture. Think about it. There's so much psychology in I'm the doctor, they're the patient, that when you go to the doctors, you'll wait in the waiting room 45 minutes past your scheduled appointment. How does that relate to when you're running business and you show up late? The person says, oh, you're late, and you want to cower in the corner and say, I'm sorry. I don't say I'm sorry. I'm like, well, you're still alive. Great. Let's get to it, right? The doctor doesn't apologize when he walks in the room 45 minutes late. or they just call you back. He says, what's wrong with you? Tell me what hurts. And that's the perspective in the appointment. I'm here now. Let's go over this. Let's figure out what's wrong so that I can give you your medicine, so that I can give you a solution to your problem. Now, when I'm in an appointment, I'm in charge. It's their house. They can tell me to leave, but I'm in charge. This is my process. The insurance companies are going to dictate and decide whether you get approved, right? You can decide not to buy, but I'm in charge. This is my process. And that event gave me perspective that I'm a professional and I'm here to help. And sometimes against, not against their will, but just their whole, they've been programmed to resist buying things that are good for them, right? Sometimes you'll have a client, maybe you can relate to this, those of you who are watching this, that the client says, I don't like to make hasty decisions. I don't make decisions on the first time. And I'd say, perfect, Paul, you know what? Can I be honest with you and ask you a question? What are you going to say? You're going to say, yes, of course. And I'm going to say, you want to know why you just said that to me? Because in the past, you've made hasty decisions on the spot that were bad for you. And now you have a bad experience of making a hasty decision. But this is what I will tell you based on my experience. Those hasty decisions were not for the benefit of your family. They were a doodad. They were something flashy. It was a new iPhone. It was a new TV. It was a new computer. It was a new car. It was a concert. It was something. It was some bling that provided zero value for your family. So you made hasty decisions on things that were irrelevant and didn't matter. How about you make a hasty decision on something that the only negative outcome is if you die, they benefit and they come out better than, they can be provided for. Let's say you find something better down the road, great. But at least now you have something. So when you say, I don't make hasty decisions, yes, you do. That's why you just told me that, because you have in the past for that gold ring, that bling, that whatever it is that this person's into. How about you just make a hasty decision where the only downside is your family's protected? Sounds like a plan to me. So that's being the doctor and them the patient. So I own that now. So in my mind, I used to make fun of you. I'm like, what in the world is Paul talking about? I'm the doctor. And I would laugh to myself. I'm like, this guy's crazy. But there is pure genius because I got it later on. I don't want to say my first year, maybe not even my second. Probably by my third, when I went full time, I owned that for a while.
I love that, man. One thing I love too is when you're talking about that objection you just handled, all you did was you detached the emotion from the events that they've had in the past that are really kind of influencing the present situation with you sitting in front of them, because it's like they don't even realize that the emotion or the response they have right now, it's just tied to events that they've had prior and the emotion that's derived from that. And so I love that, man, unpacking that and really untying that emotion from that event and saying, hey, let me retie something different to this event. This is different. This is not the same emotion you need to tie to it because it's not the same event that took place. And I think unpacking that is a great way for them to say, yeah, okay, I can now move forward because your thought process does make sense to me. And I think that's a big deal, man. And I think that, really that's the whole, you've heard this preached, or talked about on many podcasts, attitude and activity, and that's the thing that I think most people get discouraged of is when the activity seems like it's really good and they're putting it all back in. And a lot of times your mental toughness can be tested when you feel like I'm giving it my all, man. I'm just working. I'm putting it all in. Like I'm fighting. I'm up earlier. I'm up later. I'm dialing 3 times back to back. But I've not yet seen the progress. I've not yet experienced that payoff. That's the breeding ground for frustration and disappointment and where mental toughness can wane. But I believe that when you plug into the right sources, you can get attitude adjustments, perspective adjustments, attitude, the subtle way you feel and think about things. And now when you go out there and put that same activity in, you can get a significantly different result. And all of a sudden, what you thought you was so far off, like I'm so far off, like I've been giving my all, and how can I go from here to here when I've got such a big gap? Well, no, it's just a subtle adjustment that sometimes is necessary, needed by plugging in. And I think that's a beautiful thing. That's what you just talked about. Joe, I've heard before, if you want your problems to get smaller, get bigger. right? Don't pray for your problems to get smaller. Pray to be bigger. Talk about that, man. How is that applicable in this business? How have you seen that applied to this business for you, that concept?
Yeah, that's just another way of saying what one of my mentors and one of the people that I used to follow, Jim Rohn, says: don't wish for things to be easier, wish for you to be better, right? It's the same concept, just said in a different way. Don't wish for things to be easier, wish that you were better. And so one of the things that I can relate with in this business was, I had an agent not too long ago. He's like, how did you know that was going to be the answer? How did you know? And I had to take a step back and think about it for a moment. I was like, how did I know that? It's because I've sat face to face with probably close to 10,000 people, right? 10,000 people. That's how I know. It's all about showing up over and over and over and over again. I can look back to times in the Bay when I was running business where I think it's Aloe Black, I'm the Man, that song. And it's kind of a long song. And I used to park, around the corner from the appointment and pull over, play that song, and look in the mirror and smile. You guys think that that's crazy, but it is kind of crazy. But in my mind, I was like, I had to give myself a little bit of a confidence boost and get myself geared up to go give it my all in that appointment. That's what I needed. And so some of you need some kind of confidence boost, whatever it is for you specifically. I used to listen to that song, smile in the mirror, and then I would go to the appointment not too far away so that I could be there and be excited, or be just have what I needed to give my all for that family. But over time, I could be having the worst conversation. I love to build the business in between appointments. I love to take calls on my drive time. Yeah, I can listen to audios and sometimes, but at some point, I started to doze off driving. So it was always taking calls from agents and fixing problems. And I could be having the worst conversation. And as soon as I pull up in front of a house and hang up, it's look in the rear view, smile to make sure, and then get out, and I'm in that appointment from the moment I pull up in front of that house. So it's just a switch. And it's not that came overnight. It took a little while, but that's where you need to be at. That's where you should aspire to be, is so you're there present for the family at hand. And if you bring any of your baggage with you in the appointment, you're doing them a disservice, and you're doing yourself a disservice, whether that's financial problems, whether that's, business woes, whether that's relationship problems. Any problems that you bring into the appointment is not good for the person you're sitting in front of. So dude, I don't know if that answered your question or not.
It definitely does, man. And I think that's one of the main points in mental toughness, is staying in the zone, like being in the zone. And that's what you're talking about, because things take place in the zone. Doesn't mean everything, conditionally speaking, is going in such a good way that you can just clearly be present minded. That's not what in the zone means. In the zone means that you're in the zone, and it's at all cost, and things they take place, and the lion roars, and the distractions, and this discouragement, and the doubt, whatever's taking place, or the personal stuff that happens, but you're just in the zone, and you've got these different things that can kind of trigger you to stay back in that zone, that compartmentalization, where you can compartmentalize and get back focused at the task at hand. And I think that's essential for this business, because when you're going to the client's house and you're thinking about the things you have going on, you're not able to take your eyes off yourself long enough to put them on the client, where they know that you care to help them, because that's what it's about. But if you can compartmentalize and the client knows that you're present, it's about them, and that the value you bring them far supersedes the value you receive in any kind of commission, that's how you become very effective in serving people. And that goes back to the whole doctor-patient analogy as well. The doctor provides so much more value than to you than he provides in a paycheck, that you don't ever see him as a salesperson, but he needs you to show up, or else he can't pay his bills. It's just a different kind of perspective. And I love that, man, the practical things you talked about, about staying in the zone. And that, for me, it's like even my phone goes off in the morning, I have like my reasons on my alarm clock is named my reasons. So when I go wake up in the morning, I walk across the room and beer bong my bottle of water, which is how I put it back. I don't mess around. It's like going back to the college days, the way I put that thing back. But because boom, it hits me. I wake up, I'm hydrated, right? But I look at my alarm and it's got my reasons there, and so I can see it. It's like, do I go back to bed? No, I got less options. That's not an option because I'm looking at this. This is what I got to go to. That's not an option then. But you have more options when you have less reasons. And the bigger your no list is, the better off you're going to be to go out there and stay in your zone, develop mental toughness, go out there, grow, develop, and handle all the things that come at you. So you become bigger when it comes to problems that come at you, and they become smaller. They don't really become small. They just seem smaller because you're bigger. And I think that's a big deal, man. Joe, I know, the thing is this, and I don't know how to best, I guess, package say this, but, when people work a job, life happens. When people are self-employed, life happens. Life always happens. It's going to happen regardless. It just happens. But I think when you work a job, you don't have the option to get consumed in the way you feel about certain tragedies or setbacks or personal things that take place. But when you're self-employed, we can kind of get caught in how we feel. And when we get caught in how we feel, mental toughness goes down, choices, become ones we shouldn't make. And we're really developing wrong disciplines because we're caught in the feeling. Can you talk about that? I know that, you had a personal thing take place that wasn't easy to go through. You moved to Texas, right? And I don't know how soon after, but it seemed pretty soon that your house burned down. You've got a beautiful family, kids and stuff. And that's something that, thank God financially you're in a great spot. FFL, you're probably a 7-figure income earner, but it's still that taking place, what happens there. Can you talk about, how you didn't get caught up in that feeling of what was going on? You didn't develop a victim mindset. Cause dude, every time I talk to you, Joe, I mean this, it doesn't matter what's going on. You stay at the same level. Like I've never talked and spoken to you and thought, man, Joe's got a bunch of crap going on. I could tell it on him. Or I've never spoken to you and thought, man, Joe's got so much great stuff going on. I could tell because he's still, it's just like, you just hold yourself as if you stay in that same level. You don't drop your level as far as, how you see yourself and that abundance thought process. Can you kind of talk about that as we wrap up? Because I think that's a great place to park and, spend a little time on.
Sure. The kids just got home from school, and so I could feel them eyeballing me through the door.
Dude.
Yeah. So this is a great segue into this process. There's something called the slide edge. The slide edge. It's the simple daily disciplines practice over time, or the simple errors and judgments that you didn't accomplish, right? So simple daily disciplines practice over time, or simple errors in judgment, right, that you didn't accomplish. Now, you can either take responsibility or you can blame others. You can't do both. You can do one or the other. It's kind of like that thought where people say you can either make money or make excuses, but you can't do both. This is the same mindset. So the slide edge is something that I wish I was better at it, but the one thing about it I am pretty good on is taking responsibility versus blaming others. Because when you blame others for anything, it does not end well for you, not for them, even if it's their fault. If you blame them for something, you're giving up all your power, right? And so to answer your question specifically, 2020 was my best year, because this one's not over yet, but 2020 was my best year. I was making more money than I've ever made. I was in California running 30 appointments a week, face-to-face. During the pandemic, we were doing extremely well. And I was on track for Hall of Fame. And I was actually, I believe I was ahead of the curve, but my mom passed away in August, right? She passed away in August, and just, it kind of came out of the blue. She had a lot of health issues, but she's always had health issues, so I wasn't expecting it. And so it threw me off my game a little bit, in a sense that I had a lot of responsibilities to take care of. And I still ran business on the weekends because I if I go back to 2017, I want to say I made like 200 grand just running Saturdays in 2017. Now, I'm not proud that I could have ran more, of course, but I did run Saturdays and made a lot of money. But I ended up slowing down in 2020, personally selling. I was still building my business and helping agents, but I wasn't able to run as much and to handle that. And in that crisis and all that stuff, my family and I had made the decision, like, hey, this is the kids are not in school because of the pandemic. My mom just passed. There's nothing holding us back here. Let's go to Texas. And so we ended up having our house remodeled, putting it on the market, selling it by the end of November. And then I flew to Texas, found a house, and then we drove to Texas. And it was like December 14th or 15th, I want to say, we got the keys to the house. It was a Saturday. Then our goods showed up on a Monday. We didn't take them out of the boxes. We just had to move them to the middle of the rooms because we turned the house over to a contractor to paint and put in new carpet and some things, right? When you get a new house. While they were doing that, we decided to go to New York, to Long Island, because my license was being transferred. California, everyone was working from home, collecting a check, not doing anything. So transferring my license was actually really a pain. So we took a vacation to Long Island to see my wife's parents for Christmas. And the day after we got there, we woke up to just a bunch of alarms on our phone, like, because we had something set up on the house and we thought we got robbed. But we called the one neighbor we had met. They called us like 2 hours later telling us that, no, you didn't get robbed, but there was a fire. And so we're like, oh, a fire. Okay. And it was kind of interesting because you're like, what do you think of when you think, oh, there was a fire? You think of like, what, the garage, what was the kitchen, what happened? What could have possibly have happened? And then we started getting the pictures and literally the whole stinking house caught on fire. And so, welcome to our vacation for Christmas, and our house burned down. The only thing that was left was like the garage. And funny thing is both of our cars were in the garage shut. So they were trapped in the garage. And then we still had about 10 days left, whatever. And we came back January 1st to no house and no transportation. Me, my wife, and my 3 kids. So at that point, it was just like, what are we going to do? What could we do? Were we going to get mad about it, sad about it? I didn't have time to have any of those thoughts. It's, hey, I need to get a rental. We need to get an Airbnb. We need to talk to the insurance company. There was just so much to do that I didn't have time to be upset about it at all. And just, no one died. I just lost my mom. So that was harder, in my opinion, than the house. The kids, it was a new house, so they weren't necessarily attached to it. So it wasn't that traumatic, but a lot of their things, a lot of their sentimental stuff, I inherited a lot of the family stuff from my mom that I never went through because we were moving and we lost all that. So it was tough, but here's the thing, life moved on. And to bring this story full circle is the house that we were meant to buy. The house that we were meant to buy, we ended up finding, and it's an amazing house. It's like just under 5,000 square foot. It has a movie room, like a theater room and a game room and a pool, and it's again a gated community. This was the house that we were supposed to buy, and that was not the house that we were supposed to buy. So,
Joe, hey, one thing I want to say to all that though, man, is like, I think your response to what took place, though, like, your positive, your perspective, meaning that like when you say stuff like, well, nobody had died and they weren't so emotionally connected. I mean, it's just finding the good in all that, with all the things that you could have focused on. Obviously, there's a lot of bad you could focus on it, but your focus was good. I remember talking to you after that, and I felt the same way. Your focus was still good. It was, what can I find good in this? And I just think that, when we perceive the right way, we receive the seed of good that's in it. And the house that you did find that was meant to be, I think that house was only found and you realized it was meant to be because of the way you approached and responded to what did take place. And I don't think if you responded that way, I don't think you would have found that's good seed, which is the house that you're in now. And I just think that's the way it is in business and everything else, is that, God has got, when he says, hey, I will work everything together for the good to those who love me and called according to my purpose. That's a fact, but we can know it. We know that scripture. I saw it on a t-shirt. That's a good one. Well, okay. But do you respond like that? Did you respond like that when you had 19 no sales, when you had 10 charges? Because there's always good in it. And the more resistance you've got, the more grace grace God's got for you, and the better the benefit's going to be on the other side of it, if we could just respond right. And I wrap up in saying this, I think, Joe, for one, I've never, we've had many conversations, and I remember being in the beginning of this business, I had this sense of humor. I'd kind of mess around and stuff. And it was definitely not, it was immature leadership that I grew through. We knew each other back in my early 20s, and I just think that even, working with you, you are somebody that just, no matter what you went through, no matter who you dealt with, like, you never took an offense. And I think that there's freedom when you don't take offense. And I think that as everybody goes out today, there's going to be things that could offend you. And sometimes they rightfully should offend you. Like, I remember Joe messing with you one time about your close or your sales and how low your numbers were when you were working part-time. And again, this is back when I was just an immature leader, not knowing how to empower, equip, challenge, and grow people. And I remember thinking back after that, that week, as I kind of, was thinking about the team and everything, like, man, what was I, it was just, it was like a jab, and you didn't even want to go out and write 40 grand because you weren't in that time yet. Right. You had your wife working full time, but I remember you never got offended, dude. You always chose to get better. And I think that too often, people, in this business, you can be offended by clients, by anything. And when you build offense or take offense, you're building up a prison that it's very difficult to get out of. You're building a prison that you're not going to be able to get past and get over. But if you just don't take offense to anything, right, and become the person that's like, what does it matter? Who cares? Let's grow. Let's go. And you don't take offense to anything. And nowadays, there's so many different things that we can take offense to, right? And everybody's trying to take an offense or grab an offense. But in this business, being self-employed, I think that if you're given much is required, right? You're given all these blessings and benefits to have freedom and schedule, freedom and no lid in your income. But with that, I think all the things that are negative become more negative. They become more magnified when you grab them. Offenses hurt everybody, even if you're working a job, but they hurt even more when you're self-employed, because you build a prison up where you stop taking accountability, ownership, and figuring out, how do I grow, get better, and move forward? It's almost like you're throwing quicksand in the gap between where you're at to where you want to go, when you justify, complain, blame, or cast excuses or take an offense. And so I just appreciate you, man, for, being a good example of that, because again, I do my best to be as intentional as possible with paying attention to details and things, and learning and growing. Probably the only reason why I've had any kind of success is watching people and paying attention how I need to grow in what areas I'm deficient based off where they're killing it and their gifts and skill sets, and figuring out how I can develop and get better from them. And so I appreciate you being that person again, like I said, man. And thank you for joining today, guys. I hope this served you and served you well. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to comment every week on YouTube. If you make a comment on YouTube, on the West Coast YouTube page where this is played live, we do a drawing, and you can win, lead cash every single week. I know Casey gets on here and he does a drawing, and we have a winner each and every week that will help make sure that this week is better than last week, which is the goal and the mission and the purpose of doing this podcast every week for everybody. Also turn on the notifications and share this. I believe that, everybody wants to make a difference. You want to be valuable to people. You want to be meaningful, specific. And sometimes just sharing some content like this, maybe somebody's struggling with some of these things, and they hear it and they say, man, I need to tweak this. I could get better here. And that one little share made a big difference for them and the week that they have this week. So Joe, thank you again, my man. I appreciate you jumping on, brother.
100%. Thanks, Paul, for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Hey, go out there, make it a massive week. Be strong, stay steadfast. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, James Roberts LaFork here. Giving away $250 in lead credit. Let's do it. Let's see what we got. Ashley Shanklin. Get in contact with Victoria. Congratulations.